I initiated. It was me who did the application, but it was him who had left.
When you hit that golden anniversary, and you're celebrating 50 years together, or you're congratulating a couple who celebrated their golden anniversary, why doesn't somebody ask them, okay, so how many of those 50 years, what portion was good?
Welcome to the podcast series hosted by Help in Crisis 246, where we focus on teaching what you can do in moments of mental or emotional crisis and where you can find help. But the series is not limited to only teaching how to cope in moments of crisis, but we focus on teaching you everyday methods that anyone can use during moments of high stress, difficulties, hurt, panic, anxiety. In other words, how to deal with some of life's most inevitably difficult moments. We do this through interviewing varying experts from different fields who share with us nuggets of wisdom on how we can cope in healthier ways through some of the most common difficulties we all face in life. We also interview those who are somewhere along on their own healing journeys and their journeys towards finding their authentic self as they share from a very vulnerable and open position how they were able to navigate that journey. I'm Michelle Russell. I'm an attorney and a mental health advocate, and I'm very passionate about this area because I had my own healing journey that I've been on for quite some time. And I really just hope that the series can help you navigate your difficult moments and your journey towards a better version of yourself. So if this interests you, be sure to subscribe to our channel, and you can follow us on IG or Facebook at Helping Crisis 246. So one of the things I love to do on the podcast is to have people on who are willing to share their own experiences, particularly those that might be seen as more vulnerable, and that most of us do go through, whether or not we're willing to admit it or whether or not we have someone we feel safe to talk to about it. And that's the aim of the podcast, to help us to confront those sticky feelings, those uncomfortable feelings, and find healthier ways to process it. And today we're going back to the topic of divorce. Now, I did a podcast some time back with Danielle Campbell, who you could probably see right there to the right. And we did touch on divorce, and I was so grateful for how willing she was to share on what is, a sensitive topic. But we wanted to be able to also look at the other side of divorce, which is the aftermath of it. Because in the first part, we looked at the things that led up to it. We looked at the person she became in the marriage to survive the marriage. We looked at the difficulty in making the decisions to divorce, and even how it affected the children and that fear and what other people say and what religion says. And, often people think that divorce is a cowardly thing because you're supposed to stick it through no matter what. And I honestly think people underestimate the courage it takes to walk away from somebody you love, the courage it takes to walk away from the dream and to start over, because more often than not, that's what divorce is. And it's not just starting over in love, it's in finances, it's in where you live, it's how you're now going to co-parent and all of these things. And we touched mostly on that in the last one. But today I just wanted to have a discussion. And we're going to really just talk about that moment of divorce, that aftermath of divorce, the road back to yourself, the road back to love. Like, how exactly do you navigate that period? And I have with me today Patrice Alleyne, who I'm so grateful that she agreed to do this. And of course, Danielle Campbell, who was here for the first and only episode we ever did on this topic. Now, ironically, we got here because of a video that Patrice had posted on her story. And it was essentially a video of a lady in a car crying. And the woman was saying she literally just got divorced. She walked out of court and she didn't expect it to be this painful. Because, when you think of divorce, it's a decision you've made to walk away. And if you go through that whole court proceeding, then you expect to feel relief, especially if it was, a painful divorce. You just wanted it to be over. You wanted to get away from your partner. And she was shocked by how painful it was. And she was saying no one really talks about it. So I reached out to Patrice in her DMs. I slid into her DMs. And I said, in my early legal career, for the first 7 years, I did divorces. Part of the reason I stopped. But I told her I saw this all the time. The shock on the litigants, the same litigants who would have been running me down and saying, when is this going to be over? When is the next court date? Oh my God, I just want this to be done. And then we go in and we get what is called a decree absolute, because there's 2 stages, at least in Barbados. You have the decree nisi and then the decree absolute. The absolute is the final one. And in some cases, especially if you don't have children, you could get nisi and absolute in one go. Mm-hmm. And whenever we walked out of court, especially if it was simple and it was over in 5 to 10 minutes, they all came out and they were like, that's it. And I would see the grief. I would see the disbelief, and they'd say, there was so much leading up to the marriage and so much for the wedding and so many years of investment. It's so weird to think that in 5 to 10 minutes, it's over. And most of them had nowhere to put those emotions. They didn't know how to process it. I will admit, back then I wouldn't even have known how to help them, except to say, I understand, or as best as I could. And that's what we want to focus on today. So I'm going to start with Patrice, since she posted that video. Why did it speak to you?
It spoke to me because I thought that I was the only person who had felt that way. I didn't realize that it was not unique to me. So actually, a friend had sent it to me, and she's going through her own thing. So when she sent it to me and I watched and I listened, it resonated so much because that was my exact feeling. I remember when the magistrate hit the gavel, I literally gasped. I was like it startled me. I was like, just so? Like, that's it? And I could not believe that something that was what I thought so well put together in my mind and for my life and for what I wanted, that like in a second he could just say, all right, it's over. Like legally it's over. So that video resonated with me in that what she went through, what she felt, I felt the same way. And then I realized, oh, hold on. It wasn't just me. It's other people actually felt this way. And Danielle, listening to your podcast with Michelle, I realized that it was the same for you too. So it's something that it will be good if we can speak more about it, because people go through their problems, these same problems. Situations are different, but there's still these similarities. So if it is that this podcast, this particular topic can help other people, then let's talk about it.
How long were you separated before you got divorced?
2 years.
So even though there was that 2-year period of knowing this is over, I'm not going back, there is no forward, you still felt that grief?
Yeah, it was actually 2 years really of just trying, just hoping that we would be on the same page at the same time and still trying to make it work. But then it got to a point where I realized, hello, well, this amount of time has passed and we're pretty much in the same position that we were at the start of the separation. It's not going to work. So I had to make like a mental decision, like, all right, I have to accept that this is it. Like, so for the 2 years of separation, it was pretty much 2 years of trying still, doing counseling and what's not. But then it came down to like the nitty-gritty of it. Like, do I want to keep trying? Do I want to? And then you have to just make the decision, like, and accept that it is not going to work.
And who initiated?
I initiated. It was me who did the application, but it was him who had left.
I'm going to come back to that. Yeah. I'm going to come with Danielle. I sent you the video.
Yes.
And you also had some thoughts. Can you share them?
It was very, very heavy, very loaded for me because, as Patrice said, everybody's process is different. No one is, alike. But the similarities with it is the finality, I think. Feeling and sort of not really grasping the fact that this is it. And well, in my case, it continued because in my case, they're children, so there's a level of okay, we know we're not going to continue being married eventually, right? So that's it. But what about the kids? So I think in my case, I got caught up, as I had to, I got caught up in um, trying to work out, okay, what's the best for the kids? What's the best for the kids? So I was distracted. I think, and it kind of helped in a kind of a weird way because I had to put myself back to the back of the line and put my kids forward, and then in my case as well, we were separated maybe for 2 years, and then I left. He wanted to keep the house. So I said, okay, listen, I'm going to leave. I'm not going to fight for the house. This does not make sense. So in late 2017, I started to look for a place for, the kids and myself. And then in 2018, February 2018, I actually physically left the matrimonial home. So we hadn't gotten the divorces yet, but the divorce came on later in 2018. So I think my realization of understanding the finality of it it was delayed. It was delayed.
So that when you actually got to the point of walking out of court after what would have been, a long period of separation, a lot of adjustment with the co-parenting, how did you feel?
That's an interesting question. I honestly don't know how I felt. Because it was like it was a whole mixture of things. You know what I mean? It's like I didn't feel grief for any extended period of time because I was just so busy doing other things and arranging other things and settling into a newness and settling into a new job. And there were so many things happening, so many moving parts, but the grief was there, but I think I had to sort of I pushed it away. I sort of pushed it behind. I think it's only when I moved into my new home and the place got quiet, I think that's when I really started to feel the effects of it. But before that, that was during the separation. It was fighting. We had a lot of fighting. There was a lot of fighting. So it was more anger than anything else, leading up to the whole thing.
So can I ask this, and I'm probably going to end up putting the two of you in the hot seat on this one.
Yeah.
Having made the decision to divorce, and Danielle, did you initiate it?
No, he did. He filed the application. Yeah.
Okay. Is there a reason he did it before you, since you were the one who actually moved out to the house?
Well, I guess he decided to get a head start. Let's just put it that
Fair
way.
enough. So having separated physically and emotionally, even if you're still grieving the loss of the relationship,
Yeah.
what I want to know is this. Naturally, there would have been external influences and lots of people who had views on whether or not you should have stayed or left, or whether you should have left long ago, or whether you should have kept trying. At the time of that divorce, you're going into court and you just left court, or the days after and the week after, did you feel the need to save face by showing strength, relief, or happiness?
No.
No. Okay, Patrice says that very easily. Explain that.
I guess I remember, well, people who know me know that my sisters are like a real support system for me. And throughout everything, we have our group chat and, I'd be texting and what's not. And at some point I realized, all right, I need to like stop venting and just figure out things for myself because it really is my life. There were some things where I had to take responsibility for. And there was no saving face on my end. I guess I'm that type of person where I'm gonna call a spade a spade. I take responsibility for my actions and I recognize that there were some things I didn't recognize it at first, but as time went on and more time went on, especially, and I think it happened more like after the fact, like after the divorce was final, that I really started to take responsibility for my actions and the part that I played. So for me, it was a like saving phase. It was like, this is what I did. This, like, I did this, I said this to cause the breakdown in the marriage. He did as well, but it was not all him. I definitely had a part to play. And I feel like as if some people always, like blame the other person, especially the man, you blame the guy. And I didn't want people to think, I think I got a little protective of him too. Like, I didn't want people to think that he's a bad person because he isn't. Yeah, I had my part to play too. So it wasn't like this is a situation. I wasn't ashamed of it because it's something that I definitely learned from. And I think I'm a better person today because of it. Good. Because there were things that I learned about myself that I can't be like this. I need to change this about myself.
But they do say that there's no greater mirror than a relationship, and there are aspects of you that will never come to the fore, aspect of your wounds, your upbringing, your internal family systems that will not come to the fore outside of being in relationship with others and being in romantic relationships. So that if you're willing to do the introspection, there's a mirroring. It shows you.
Yeah.
So true.
And that is what happened. Yeah.
For those who are willing to see. So Danielle, how about you?
For those who are willing
to
see.
Did you feel the need to save face for your kids, for your family, for your church?
That is an excellent question. I think I was in between two places. I think I did to an extent for my children, but and then secondarily, for my parents, because I'm the only child. So and I know, especially for my mother, she took the entire thing very, very hard, very, very hard. And so I felt the need that I had to sort of, puff out my chest and do what I need to do and be sometimes very businesslike about the whole thing. And also, even in terms of, how I dealt with him. And Patrice made a point, a huge point. Very often in divorce, we look at the one side, and we're quick to take sides. But when, as Michelle said, when we hold that mirror up, we see so much that we did wrong, that we fell short on, that we could have done better. I know that I am actually still going through that. As a matter of fact, I think even during the process, I didn't even have a chance to hold up that mirror. It's only now, because only in looking back, and not to, go off the course, but what I'm saying is that only in looking back now, I can say, oh yeah, I remember that was a thing, in the marriage, and look, I'm still, I have the same patterns, you know what I mean? And I need to break that pattern in terms of my finances, or in terms of, just different things. It comes back to me because I realized that there were certain things along the marriage that I, did not do, that I was supposed to do. And, I'm not saying that the end or the ending of the marriage, because it was quite terrible. But the ending of the marriage, I'm not saying that I deserve to be treated the way I was, treated because of my behavior during the marriage. But I'm just saying that we all have a part to play. And in terms of saving face, as Patrice said, yes, the long and short is, I did, but I didn't in certain cases, I don't know if that's kind of clear.
So what happens in the immediate aftermath? So I'm going to carry it down a level because I've never been married. And I'm going to talk about just a normal breakup, accepting that a divorce is a million times harder. And, you go through the initial crying, and sometimes that whole looking at your self-worth. So, they have this joke or thing they say where, a woman's about to change her life when she cuts her hair. So that sometimes you go into this whole makeover phase
where you have to start looking cute again. Or you could go into being a little bit more reclusive. You might go back into dating, or you might say, you know what, I just need to be away from dating for a long time. What did the initial aftermath look like in terms of finding back yourself and where you put that pain? Like, what did you do?
I Oh, it's okay, Patrice, you go ahead.
Patrice said she
Please.
don't think she cut her hair.
Like the average woman, because like I don't know. What I did do though, you know about this. I went straight into a relationship, another relationship.
Oh, really?
Yes.
I didn't
I don't know.
realize it was so close.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was very, very close. I don't think I give myself enough time to really, or at least I told myself that the 2 years being separated was, I said that to myself. You know, that was enough time, to heal and get over and
Mhm.
do what I need to do. And in my mind, I thought I was ready for another relationship. And it was with someone that I've known like almost my entire life. So that is what I did. I went into another relationship thinking that it was going to be fine and dandy because this is somebody that I know inside and out and somebody who knows me inside and out as well. But even in that, I realized that I mean, hindsight really is 2020. I don't know what I was thinking, but it really, like that relationship, like the same things that came up in my marriage pretty much came back up in that relationship. So I was not ready. And I feel like as if you just need to take that time, do what you need to do, go into therapy. I went into therapy at one point in time while I was still in the relationship after the divorce. I started therapy maybe a couple months before we had actually broken up. But yeah, I think we really need to, after something as traumatic as a divorce, no matter like Danielle, you property and kids were involved. It wasn't for me. So people would probably say that mine was easier, but in a sense, it was easier like in a legal sense. I don't have to go through that, but emotionally still, it was still traumatic. So you really need to have to give yourself that space to be able to dissect everything that happened and be able to come to terms with everything that now is new. And yeah, as a woman, you need to do that because yeah, the mental the mental well-being, your emotional well-being, you need to
Definitely.
yeah.
Definitely. Definitely.
Danielle.
Oh, girl. The aftermath. It was a mixture of I did therapy. I did therapy. Actually, during the process, I sort of, danced with therapy, even during the divorce and the separation and the divorce, because I realized that the way things were going, I would go insane. I would lose my marbles, and that would not have been okay, because that may have been used against me, so that to say I'm not a good mother. That's a no. So these dynamics, as I said, I mean, um, I had to keep a level head, and I needed external help before I go into anything other than. So really and truly, as Patrice said, you really have to take stock of yourself. I know I couldn't do it on my own. There was no way in hell I could have done it on my own. I had to seek help, and I did. It wasn't as regular as I wanted to, because of course you have to think about finances and the time to do it and everything else, right? It's easy to say, oh, go get therapy, but there are many persons out there who don't have the money, um, and even the time to do that when you're working full time. But it is definitely necessary, without a doubt. Take a step back, take stock of yourself. If you can get the help, seek the help, do it, and give yourself that breathing space. And yeah, like Patrice, I mean, well, she said she entered into a relationship, soon thereafter. But people were like, hey, so you're on the market now, you know what I mean? As if it's a thing that people think that you're divorced, and oh yeah, right off the bat, hey, you're available. And men and women both, were like, oh, this is a good time to get out there and date. But sometimes you just don't want to get out there and date. Sometimes you're so you're so raw and you're so, you've been through so much. It's like, it's a lot to date. It's a lot to go out there and see if you could get somebody. I find it's a lot to take on. It's a traumatic experience. Divorce and separation is traumatic.
So, most of the time, men seem to move on quicker. And I say seem because sometimes it's just about jumping
Yes.
into another relationship, even if mentally and emotionally they're not ready. Did any of you experience that? And if you did, how did that feel?
Yeah. So yeah. My ex got married in, let's see, 2021, I think. Men do that. And the theory I've heard is that it's because men, they can't stand to be by themselves too long. You know what I mean? They must have that feminine, that woman at the side of him, because they can't cope being on their own too long. I don't know how true it is, but I'm just saying what I was told.
Patrice, do you have any experience with that?
No, honestly, I don't even know like what he did after in terms of how he handled it. We never, he didn't do anything externally where I would have seen, and nothing was said. So I really don't know. I know the relationship that I was in, he wasn't very fond of that. But I guess that would be one way. But other than that, I have absolutely no idea how he dealt with it. None.
If you were to give advice to men or women who are at that phase of thinking of separating or just newly divorced, what do you think is the best wisdom you could share?
I would jump to say, find a way to talk, to seek therapy. And I know it sounds very cliche, but even the nicest and the most friendly of divorces and separation, it has trauma in it. It would have a level of trauma in it. Even if you need one session, even if you think, you're okay, he's okay, you're okay, we're all okay, we're fine, we're still friends. Still, find a way to at least, because shared experiences, I mean, it's a real experience. It's a phase of your life that you won't get back with this particular person. Even if later on you'll get back together, that phase is gone. And there's a level of there's a connection that's very deep there, that you have to understand its place in your life, and how best to move on is important, so that you can really move on and move forward without any level of bitterness or regret or anger. Or if somebody comes to you and says, hey, I saw you not reacting in a kind of a weird way about it, too much. I think it's important to seek that session, that counseling session. That's, I think.
Patrice?
For me, I think it would be to figure out what you can learn from it. Everybody's situation is different. So, like what I went through, the advice I probably would give myself, like me now, the advice I would give myself back then probably wouldn't be the same advice I would give somebody else. Um, but just to learn whatever you can, learn about yourself, learn how you handle situations, whether or not you decide to stay in a marriage and try to make it work, or whether you decide to go ahead and get divorced, or if the divorce is final and you're going through the whole process, see what you can learn from this. Because I always say, you live, you learn. Once your life, you're going to be learning something. So that's it. Just take what you can. I mean, you're going to go through the feelings and emotions and everything else. And that is a process in itself to have to just go through. But at the end of it, you have to come out with some good. And the good for me was learning certain things about myself that wasn't the best, and I needed to tweak and make certain adjustments in my life and my attitude and that kind of stuff. So I think it would just be to learn.
So, do you fear the future? Do you fear marrying again? Do you fear marriage?
I was thinking about that on my way here. Um, I did, I did. My divorce, like you, Danielle, 2018. I think I got my decree dated January 2019. And like right after that, and a couple of years after, I was afraid of marriage and that kind of stuff. I wouldn't say that I am 100% open to it, no, but I am not as terrified of it like I was before. Um, I don't know if it's something that I would do again, um, but I do like company. I like companionship. I like people. I like friends. So if that is me, then sure. But I don't think that I would. Not at this point. But you know, they say never. But
I'm going to come back to that. Danielle.
Yeah, in terms of fearing the future, no. I am fervently working towards creating a future for myself that is more wholesome. And as I said earlier, you know, there's a rediscovery that I'm now going through. You know, that I don't think I had the space to do it during the whole separation and divorce. But now in this phase of my life, and you know, in my 40s, I'm thinking, okay, you know, now is the time to actually figure out, okay, what I love, look at new experiences, learn from that, you know, and you know, just sort of try to wing it as much as possible, but do it sensibly. Before I don't think I was very sensible. And in terms of being, I want to be married again. I do. You know, I'm not desperate for it. I mean, to me, if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I'm not going to run away from it. I can see myself being remarried. You know what I mean? But it's going to be this time. It's going to be with, you know, a level of calm, because you know it's not going to be for anybody else but myself this time. Before, it wasn't for myself. You know, my wedding didn't resemble who I really was. I hope my wedding resembles who I am in the future. You know what I mean? And just let it be me, and the companionship, as Patrice said, you know, we want it where we are humans. We love to, we would all want to have that person there to get up next to every morning. Definitely.
I actually quite like that. The part I was going to go back to Patrice on is, while she might not be open to marriage, she's on the fence about it. Are you open to love and deep love? Yeah, you're okay with that. You're
Yeah,
okay
sure.
with companionship and commitment.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
that's
legal
fine.
part of it.
You don't know about that. Okay, fair
That's fine.
enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
But in like marriage to me, and I was telling my ex this, like when we were separated, I kept telling him, you know what, like we might be legally married, like on paper, but everything else is separated. The emotions, like everything, we're not physically connected. Everything. To me, we were no longer married. So for me, marriage is more than just, you know, a piece of paper. It is locking yourself in with that person, like on a deep emotional level. For me, that is what marriage is. Other people might have like their different views on it. Um, but for me, that is what a marriage is.
I mean, I will have to say I agree. You know, even when we look back at the history of the institution of marriage, a lot of it is religious based. And that is why culture per culture, it's something else. You know, in the olden days, it was enough to jump over a broom. You didn't get a piece of paper. In some cultures, I read it somewhere, there's an African culture that once you move into the hut, it means you're married. And if you don't want to be married anymore, you move out the hut. And that's
Wow.
it. Like, and then we've heard of, the Muslim practice where if you have more than one wife, you don't want the wife anymore. You just say, I divorced you 3 times. So that
Right.
it will always come down to the cultural institution, the religious institution. And I've always, not always, but certainly in my later years, I've felt on a very deep level that marriage is the intertwining of the souls, the intertwining of intention and desire. And, historically, particularly in the Caribbean, we've always looked down on common law partnerships. And we say, what? Him getting what? Him getting the milk without buying the cow. How she let
Yes.
treat her like this so long? And then in this so long, and we delegitimize it. But I have witnessed people who have the paper and they live such distant lives. They stopped
Correct.
loving each other on a core level long ago. They stopped
Absolutely.
sharing their lives with each other. They stopped sharing care, whether or not there's infidelity, but there's no connection. But, because you're not supposed to divorce. And the hallmark of success is how long you stay together, not how happy you are together.
That's right.
People
That's so
get
true.
trapped in these things. And I subscribe to a school of thought based on some people I follow. I'm trying to remember who I first saw with it. It might be the holistic psychologist, but I 100% believe in it, which is you stay in a relationship for as long as it's healthy. When we adopted this posture that says, till death do us part, and in sickness and in health, we robbed ourselves of agency. We robbed ourselves of the ability to admit we might have made a mistake. Because no matter how well intentioned you are and how much love you have, if you just are not suitable for each other, no amount of time or work will make that happen. It's just we made a mistake or we served each other as well as we could. And that's it. Because sometimes in choosing to stay, we become the ugliest versions of ourselves to survive. And any relationship that brings out that out of you, it could be your parents, it could be with your siblings, your children, anything that brings out your ugliest side as your dominant side, rather than something that appears every now and again. Correct. You have to look at it and say, why am I doing this? Where is the growth? Am I devolving? And we must be willing to ask that question. But when forever is the goal, we would sooner devolve than leave. And I always suggest that we learn to be kind to ourselves and challenge our own belief systems. Why we believe that the hallmark of success is forever. Yeah. I honestly believe the hallmark of success of any relationship, even the ones that failed, is the growth. And so for me, it's beautiful listening to the two of you say, I can look back and I saw myself. I learned parts of myself I didn't know that existed before. And then you developed a self-awareness that even after the marriage, she could spot what she was repeating in her new relationship. You could spot ways that you're triggered and doing things that you had done in your relationship. And to me, it makes the relationship a beautiful part of your life journey's growth.
Absolutely. And absolutely.
There are some people that believe there's no such thing as a mistake. I'm on the fence on it, but there's a whole school of thought about it that there are no mistakes. Just things that were necessary for your life growth and your life path. The end. It's a freeing way to think, but I'm not there yet.
Yes, I'm not there yet.
But when you do reframe it like that, because the reality is we make decisions based on what we know at the time. And who we are at that time. And so it's so much easier to look back and say, I should have. But could you have? Based on who you were and what you knew, could you have?
That's right. And
I think that's the basis of them saying there are no mistakes. It's just what you knew and what you did and what you became after. And I guess the mistake would be not learning and not growing, huh?
That's the biggest mistake.
Yeah. I tell people all the time, if I had to do it over again, get married to the same person, I would. Because coming out of that is how I learned. I mean, I probably would have, through parents and sisters and friends and whatnot, know certain things, but it really did not manifest itself fully until I was one with somebody and living with this person and, and carrying on life with them. So a lot of things came out of the marriage and the failure of the marriage that caused me to learn. So if I had to do it over again, I would. Because if it were not for that, I would not have learned the things that I learned. I have the mindset I have today. And growth that I've made since then. Like I would do it again. I mean, people listening probably would be like, for real.
I wouldn't do it again.
Well, I guess our situations were
Definitely. Yeah.
so for me personally,
Yeah.
like what I got out of it, I'm a better person for it.
That's good.
So
That's great.
I probably would have learned it a different way, but yeah.
Or not.
Or not, exactly.
Or not. Yeah. But Michelle, you made you made so many key points there. Going back to the anniversary aspect of it. I say, people need to ask, and maybe it'll be too late for certain people, but people need to ask, when you hit that golden anniversary, and you're celebrating 50 years together, or you're congratulating a couple who celebrated their golden anniversary, why doesn't somebody ask them, okay, so how many of those 50 years, what portion was good? What portion was a good portion? Because you could celebrate 50 years anniversary. That's okay, fine, great. That's an achievement. But suppose 30 years were really bad. Suppose 30 years were abusive. Suppose 30 years, they were living in the same household, but that's it. Quality over quantity is something that I think we need to understand is of utmost importance when it comes to our relationship, because I know people who got married late in life, men and women who got married in their 50s and their 60s. They were single before, and they've had 5 years, 10 years so far with their companions, and it's quality. Why? And you ask them, well, because by the time I got married, I knew myself. By the time I got married, I was able to offer more. I was able to bring more to the table in a relationship and in a marriage, and so the quality of marriage was something that they were able to stand by, and say, listen, yeah, I couldn't do this before. There was no way I could have gotten married in my 20s like my parents did or like my colleagues did, So I think that is something that we really have to not be scared to ask. What portion is of quality, would you say?
And we must not bind ourselves to someone else's love story.
Yes.
It is so hard. I see this repeated all the time, especially if you came up with parents who truly loved each other and weathered a lot. And your dream is to have what they have, and that's fine and it's normal.
Yeah.
But sometimes the pursuit of that dream will make you stay in relationships that no longer serve you. Will make you choose relationships too quickly because you say, well, mom got married at 25, I'm getting married at 25. And then if you don't, you feel like a failure, or you fear you disappoint your parents, or your parents don't want you alone. So you feel like, oh my God, I need to hurry up and find love. And we need to release this pressure of modeling someone else's love story.
That's
and
correct.
Be open to making our own, even if it doesn't look the way they hope or we hope.
You see that there is something that I had to come to terms with. I was very much, I think, scared and worried of disappointing my parents, because what was my marriage towards the end was not something that anybody catered for, especially towards, the fact that, my parents have never divorced. I mean, they've been married since the 60s. His parents were married since the 60s. We don't know divorce firsthand. We're not children of divorce. And so, for me, I would say one of the harder battles I had to fight mentally was the fact that, okay, I don't really want a divorce because, how is it going to look? And, my parents are going to be so disappointed. They put out so much for my wedding. And then you know what I mean? It's like, you know, and then yeah, the church is a thing too, you know, going through all of that process in the church, because in the church there is a process you have to go through as well for the annulment. This is apart from the court part. You know, so I fought with what I think I saw as ideal in terms of a marriage and what a marriage should look like, you know, and I didn't grow up on too many fairy tales, believe it or not, like fairy tale books. But I had this big fairy tale in what my parents' marriage looked like, you know? So that to me was like, that trumped everything.
Patrice.
Yeah. Well, just like you, my father passed away in November. It was 10 years since he passed away. And that was something. So my parents were married for 35 years. And I did look at their marriage. I looked at their marriage. I looked at my grandparents' marriage on my dad's side. And I wanted something like that. I wasn't, by the time I got divorced, my father had already passed away. So it's just my mom. But my fear was not of disappointing her. I think at that point, I don't want to say I didn't care, but I guess I didn't care like what she thought, what anybody thought, what the church thought. I think at that point, it was just, you know, just about me. And it's interesting that you said, Danielle, that you had to go through an annulment part with the church. I didn't have to do
Yeah,
that.
I did start,
Because
yeah.
recently, I went to my pastor and his wife. I mean, he was the one who married us. So I went to him and I told him, well, this is the situation and this is my action plan. And he wished me all the best. And I was surprised, even though like I know the type of person that he is, and I know that it wasn't going to be like fire and brimstone on my head. But at the same time, I wasn't expecting like a blessing, so to speak. So he wished me all the best and he completely understood. So that is as far as I had to go with my church, um, with my divorce process. But yeah, I think looking at my parents and my grandparents' marriage and just wanting that for myself, I think the one person that I was afraid of disappointing was myself. Know that I really am thinking about it, I'm talking about it, it just happened. I was afraid of disappointing myself because this is what I wanted. And
Yeah.
I wanted children, I wanted to be fine. So yeah,
Yeah.
just so.
Oh, virtual hug. Virtual hug, virtual hug. Ooh, you did warn us, you know. You did warn us, huh?
Yes, yes. I've been holding my belly this whole time. I really have.
Wow.
I am so grateful that y'all shared. I am so grateful. I feel like I have so many other questions, but I'm trying not to make the episode too long, and maybe we'll come back a bit later. So we'll have to do it another time.
We're coming back. We're coming back.
We're coming back. Are we gonna expand the conversation?
Yeah.
And I just encourage y'all to watch and rewatch this episode, the parts that speak to you. And of course, feel free to reach out. We'll answer as we can and we'll support as we can. Thank you, ladies, for being here. Thank you all for watching.
Bless you. Thank you.
You know.